Good day. So, in my report, I would like to introduce to you the Greek and Romans. So, in this report, which is the Greek and Romans, this is a mythology. My report are including these three characters, which is the Cerberus, Icantotris, and Sphinx. So, let's begin with Cerberus. So, I know every one of us know this mythical creature. So Cerberus, in Greek mythology, the monstrous watchdog of the underworld. He was usually said to have three heads, though the poet Hesiod flourished 7th century BCE said that he had 50. Who would have imagined a dog with 50 heads? So these heads of snakes grew from his back, and he has a serpent's tail. So he devoured anyone who tried to escape the kingdom of Hades, the lord of the underworld. So Cerberus had a family, or he also had a family. So according to Hesiod, Cerberus was the second of the four monstrous children of Typhon and Echidna. Being born after Orthus, the two-headed hound who guarded the cattle of Geryon. But before the Linearn, Hydra, and quite possibly the Chimera, all of them multi-headed. So later, authors list many other monsters or list many other monsters among the siblings of Cerberus, including the Sphinx, the Norman lion, the Caucasian eagle, and the Cromanian saw, the Colchian dragon, Aladdin, and even Scylla, and the mother of the Gorgons. Quite a family indeed, a quite family of monstrous mythical creatures. So the parents of Cerberus are Typhon and Echidna. So they are called the monster parents. They are the maker of the monsters. So Typhon is the most commonly depicted as the youngest son of Gaia. In Hesiod's Theogony, it was stated Typhon was the son of Gaia and Tartarus. And Echidna isn't quite as important as her partner in crime, and so her genealogy wasn't given quite as much attention. So Echidna's family tree also tended to change from author to author. So let's proceed to its portrayal. So as the number of Cerberus heads, we have contradictory testimonies. Hesiod, for example, after pointing out that Cerberus' monstrosity was almost indescribable, also adds that he, the brazen-voiced hound of Hades, is 50-headed, relentless, and strong creature who feeds on raw flesh. However, Pindus goes a step farther, claiming that Cerberus has twice more, 100 heads. So, or however, possibly due to practical reasons, in art, he is almost exclusively shown with 3 heads, and sometimes even with 2 or just 1. Later, authors trying to reconcile the descriptions started claiming that Cerberus had 3 dogs. 3 dog heads, the rest of them being the heads of snake spurting from his back, with the venomous one also serving his tail. So, in this portrayal, the description of Cerberus is based on author to author. So there is no such thing that, or the sure thing, si Cerberus had 3 heads, because his description is based on author to author. So but rather, we know Cerberus as 3 heads. But as we go deeper on its portrayal, Its characteristic depends on the author. So Cerberus also included in the Heracles 12th labor. So he is the last and thus most difficult of the 12 labors of Heracles, set for him by Eurystheus. It is a labor to bring Cerberus up from the underworld. So Hades allowed this, but only on the condition that Heracles or Heracles manages to do it without using any weapon. So, as the story, so even though he was bitten by Cerberus' serpent's tail, Heracles manages to put the dog in the stronghold and persevere long enough until Cerberus finally pass out. So, how do Heracles do this? But after this, Heracles fettered him with adamant chains and dragged the hound to Eurystheus, who was horrified by the sight that he instantly hid in his jar. So Heracles manages to do what Eurystheus challenged him to bring Cerberus up from the underworld by using the adamant chains and drag the hound to Eurystheus. But before leaving the underworld, Heracles also manages to rescue Theseus, who had been bound to a chair of forgetfulness for daring to help Eurystheus kidnap Persephone. So the earth shook in dread when Heracles tried to raise Perseus as well from his chair. So he had no choice but to let go and leave him bound forevermore. So let's go. So that is where Cerberus is included. Is included in the Heracles 12 labor. Also, he is included in the other myths. For example, in the myths of Orpheus and Aeneas. So, in the myth of Orpheus, when Eurydice died, Orpheus went to seek his beloved in the underworld. Cerberus wasn't going to let him pass, but Orpheus charmed him with his music, and the hound, tamed beyond recognition, he stepped aside. So that is why Eurydice was saved by Orpheus. So, in the myth of Aeneas naman, when Aeneas visited the underworld, he had some more than necessary help from the Sibyl of Cumae, who threw Cerberus a honey cake, spiced with few drowsy essence. So, sa myth ni Aeneas, nag-visit siya with the necessary help from the Sibyl of Cumae nga gi-itsahan niya sa honey cake si Cerberus with spice with drowsy essences. So Cerberus ate it and fell asleep in no time. So the expression asap for Cerberus originates in the story. It means quieting an uncooperative person by giving him a bribe. Are done with Cerberus. So let's go to our second character, which is the Hecatonchires. So Hecatonchires, also called the Hundred Handers. So while Cerberus had or has a 3 head, dependent on Hesiod, and the other author said that he has 100 head. So this character naman, Hecatonchires, is called 100 Handers. So we're 3 children of Gaia and Uranus named Cthulhu, Virus, and Guys, with 50 heads and 100 arms each. These creatures were a force to be reckoned with and played an important role in the war between the Titans and the Olympians. So the Hecatonchires, 100 Handers, were sons of Gaia and Uranus. In most sources, their names were given as Scotus, Briarus, and Gyges. Their appearance was quite terrifying, so they boasted 50 heads and 100 arms each. Along with their brothers, the Cyclops, the Hecatonchires were imprisoned by the earliest rulers of the cosmos. First, Uranus, and then Cronus and the Titans. They were finally released by Zeus, whom they helped overthrow the Titans. So, name and etymology. So, the name Hecatonchires, or for singular, it is Hecatonchire, is derived from the Greek words hekaton, or 100, and chair means hand or arm. However, the earliest sources to describe the Hecatonchires never referred to them collectively by this term, instead using their individual names. So they have an individual names. So the Hecatonchires was or made up of 3 persons. So the name of the first is Kutus, was a common name in Thrace, a region north of Greece known for its harsh winters and warlike tribes. It may be related to the name of Thracian goddess Cutis. So the second of the Hecatonchires had 2 names, the Briarus and Aegeon. Homer's Iliad explained the 2 names by saying that Briarus was the name used by the gods and Aegeon, the one used by mortals. To make matters even more confusing, however, the poet Hesiod never calls him Aegeon, but uses both Briarus and Briareus. So, the name of the last of Hecatonchires is Gyges, or in some texts Gyes. Martin West has argued that the name Gyges is the more correct form, possibly related to the name of the mythical Attic kings Ogyges. The alternative Gyes perhaps came about from association with the Greek word Gaian, meaning limbed. Report explained that Hecatonchires is made of 3 persons, and these persons has the attributes, or they contributed to make the Hecatonchires its form. So the Hecatonchires, or 100-handers, took their name from the 100 arms they each had. They also possessed 50 heads apiece and were terrifyingly strong in the theogony. Hesiod described them as the great and doughty beyond telling, presumptuous children. So, from their shoulders sprang 100 arms, not to be approached, and 50 heads grew from the shoulders upon the strong limbs of each, and irresistible was the stubborn strength that was in the great forms. So, Hecatonchires helped Zeus and the Olympians defeat the Titans and cast them into Tartarus. In some traditions, the Hecatonchires then became the guards of the imprisoned Titans, though in other versions they settled down in the ocean's foundations. So let's go to their family. So Hecatonchires, as we all know, were the offspring of Gaia, one of the first beings of the Greek cosmos and the embodiment of Earth, and her consort Uranus, the embodiment of the sky. So their siblings included the 3 Cyclops, which is the Brontes, Stereopist, and Argus, as well as the original 12 Titans, Coeus, Crius, Cronus, Hyperion, Laphytus, Mnemosyne, Oceanus, Phoebe, Rhea, Tethys, Theia, and Themis. Let's go through its origin. So the Hecatonchires, Cuthus, Brius, and Gyes were the offspring of the primordial deities Gaia and Uranus. So that is its origin. So the Hecatonchires were imprisoned by Uranus, who used to hide them away in the secret place of Earth so soon as each was born, and would not suffer them to come up into the light. So this act of cruelty enraged Gaia, and she urged her children to punish their father. Cronus, the youngest Titan, took up her cause and lopped off Uranus' genitals with a sickle. He then made himself the new ruler of the cosmos. The Hecatonchires thus proved instrumental in helping Zeus win the Titanomachy. Afterwards, Zeus became the ruler of the cosmos. Together with his siblings, he went to live on Mount Olympus, from which the new honor of gods derives its names, the Olympians. So, what happened to the Hecatonchires after that is obscure. Hesiod says that they went to live at ocean's foundation, but Apollodorus writes that Hecatonchires stood guard over the Titans imprisoned in Tartarus. Let's go to its pop culture. The Hecatonchires, especially Briareus, have appeared in handful of pop culture's adaptations. Briareus, for example, features in the Battle of the Labyrinth, one of the books in Rick Jordan's Percy Jackson and the Olympiads series. So the Hecatonchires have also inspired similar many armed creatures in the various other media, including role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, Promethean, and in video games, the Final Fantasy, Ace Combat, and in manga and anime, a placid ghost in the shell. We are done in Hecatonchires, so let's go to our last character, the Sphinx in Greek mythology. The great Sphinx was said by Hesiod to be the offspring of Orpheus, the two-headed monstrous dog, and the Chimera, the fire-breathing monsters. More commonly, though, the Sphinx was said to be the daughter of Typhon and Echidna. So this makes the Sphinx a sibling of our first character, Cerberus. So they are related because it is said that Sphinx is also the daughter of Typhon and Echidna. And this parentage would make the Sphinx sibling to the likes of Nemean lion, the Chimera, Ladon, and Cerberus, and the Lernaean Hydra. So the descriptions of the Sphinx. So the Sphinx in Greek mythology was said to be a female monster with the head of a woman, a lion's body, and the wings of an eagle, and possibly a serpent's tail. So we can see the similarities with Cerberus. The Sphinx also had a serpent's tail. And this imagery, of course, differs from the Egyptian Sphinx, which is normally simply that of a lion's body and the head of a man. So we can see the Sphinx in the Egyptian now he is portrayed as the which has the lion's body and the head of a man, while the Sphinx in Greek mythology is the description of a female monster with the head of a woman and a lion's body and the wings of an eagle with a serpent's tail. So the two Sphinxes also differed in temperament, for whilst the Egyptian Sphinx was thought to be beneficial guardian, while the Greek Sphinx had malicious intent. So that is their similarities and differences. So the Sphinx comes to Thebes. So initially, the Sphinx was said to reside somewhere in Ethiopia, the unknown region of Africa, but was then summoned by a deity to Boeotia, for it was required to bring disruption to the city of Thebes. So ancient writers were not exactly clear about who did the summoning, but commonly Hera or Ares were blamed. They are blamed because Hera was said to be angry with the city of Thebes and its residents following the rape and abduction of Chrysippus. Alternatively, Ares sought to punish Thebes for the previous actions of its founder Cadmus, and liking the dragon of Ares. So, having been summoned to Thebes, the Sphinx would reside in that cave upon Mount Picon and would observe all those who passed by, as well as occasional ravaging of the land surrounding Thebes. Let's move on to the Oedipus and the riddle of the Sphinx. So, because Sphinx or reside in the cave upon Mount Picon, and she observed all those who pass by. So there is a time nga those who pass near to the Sphinx would be asked a riddle by the master. So the riddle of the Sphinx being is, what animal is that which in the morning goes on 4 feet, at noon on 2, and in the evening upon 3? So those who could not solve the riddle, which was everyone, was killed by the Sphinx. So many Thebans perished by the beast, including Haemon, the son of King Creon of Thebes. Following the loss of his son, the king proclaimed that the person who rid the land of the Sphinx would be presented with a throne. Basically, the king ordered that whoever get rid of the land of the Sphinx would be or would inherit the throne. So the hero Oedipus took the challenge, and this is where the Odysseus and the riddle of the Sphinx began. So he took the challenge and deliberately went to Mount Picon to encounter the Sphinx. So the Sphinx, of course, asked the riddle of Odysseus, and the young man simply answered man. So he simply answered man. So let's find out what happened. So he answered man because a man in childhood would have or would move on hands and knees, which means it's 4 feet. So during adulthood would walk on 2 feet, and old age would make use of a cane or staff as the third foot. So the riddle was quite hard for everyone of the citizen of Thebes, and they were killed. So Odysseus just answered a man because a man sa iyang pagkabata gakamang. So he used 4 feet, and during his adulthood galakat na siya. So he or she using, or a man using, only 2 feet. And when the old age come, may use na siya sang cane or staff, and that means he is using stain or a cane or staff as his or her third foot. And it's quite interesting. So as soon as Odysseus correctly solved her riddle, so Odysseus answered it correctly. So the correct answer of the riddle of the Sphinx is man. So as he solved her riddle, the Sphinx threw herself out of the mountainside and was dashed on the mountain slope, thus ended the life of the Sphinx. So the Sphinx suicide or surrendered herself as the riddle is solved, and that made Odysseus inherit the throne of Thebes. So that concluded my report. So thank you for listening in my report, which is the 3 characters of Greek and Romance, which includes Cerberus, Icatocherus, and the Sphinx of Greek mythology. So I hope you've learned a lot and gained another knowledge in my report. And thank you for listening, and God bless.